"You will hand over the keys, Helena, or I shall have them taken from you." The Duke of Blackmere gave his wife one final chance to submit publicly, and when she refused, he unclasped the silver ring himself. The sound of the keys striking Lady Seraphina Vale's open palm seemed louder than the orchestra. More than 100 guests stood beneath the chandeliers of Blackmere Hall, gathered to celebrate the 11th anniversary of Edmund and Helena's marriage. Only moments earlier, Helena had occupied her proper place beside her husband. Now Seraphina stood between them, wearing Helena's household authority at her waist like a trophy. Edmund's expression remained cold. "Until the missing silver is recovered," he announced, "Lady Seraphina will govern this house." A murmur moved through the room. Helena looked at the empty velvet case displayed on the banquet table. It had once held 12 ceremonial pieces commissioned for Edmund's great-grandfather: 2 candlesticks, 4 salt cellars, a wine ewer, a baptismal basin, 3 serving plates, and a silver reliquary bearing the Blackmere crest. Together, they were worth enough to support the estate's tenants through 2 failed harvests. Seraphina rested one jeweled hand upon the case. "The vault showed no sign of forced entry," she said. "Only 3 people possessed keys: His Grace, the Duchess, and Mr. Wren, the steward." Mr. Wren stood near the servants' entrance, white-faced and trembling. "And where is the steward's key?" Edmund asked. "It has remained sealed in his desk since his illness began," Seraphina replied. "I examined it myself." Ah, of course she had. For 6 months, Seraphina had turned every temporary kindness Edmund granted her into permanent access. First, she had assisted his widowed mother. Then she had begun arranging dinners, reviewing menus, and advising Edmund which servants deserved dismissal. Now she stood inside Helena's anniversary feast, accusing her of robbing the family she had spent 11 years protecting. Edmund looked at his wife. "Your brother owes more than £4,000. My brother's debts are not mine. You sent him money last spring. £50 for passage to Lisbon. The payment appears in my personal account. You could have sold the silver to cover the remainder." Helena felt the accusation land more painfully than the loss of the keys. Edmund knew she had refused her brother's pleas. He had read the letter in which she warned that she would never endanger Blackmere's tenants to rescue a gambler. Yet he had chosen the version of events that made her guilty. "Open my accounts," Helena said. "Question the silversmiths in London. Search every coach that has left this estate." Seraphina's smile was soft enough to appear compassionate. "Such searches take time. Meanwhile, the orphanage at Bellhaven is expecting its winter payment. I fear the Duchess may have promised money she no longer possesses." Several guests turned toward Helena. There it was, the true blade hidden inside the accusation. Without control of her household allowance, Helena could not send coal, flour, or medicine to the 32 children at Bellhaven. Seraphina had not merely stripped her of status. She had placed innocent lives beneath the weight of Helena's silence. Edmund lowered his voice. "Confess now, and I may prevent this from becoming a criminal matter. You are offering mercy before seeking truth. I am offering you the last dignity available." Helena studied the man she had once trusted with every private fear. She remembered him at 29, exhausted beside his father's deathbed, asking whether she could save an estate burdened by careless accounts and dishonest appraisers. She had done more than save it. Using the knowledge learned in her merchant father's warehouses, she had catalogued every valuable object, exposed inflated insurance claims, and recovered heirlooms thought lost for decades. Now, that same skill made Seraphina's evidence dangerous. "Bring me the inventory," Helena said. Edmund hesitated, but Seraphina immediately handed over a leather-bound book. Helena turned the pages while the entire hall watched. The descriptions appeared to have been copied from the private catalogue locked inside her escritoire. They included dimensions, weights, maker's marks, and even a deliberate error she had inserted years earlier to identify fraudulent copies. The baptismal basin was listed as weighing 41 ounces. It actually weighed 43. Someone had stolen Helena's records and repeated her trap without understanding it. She continued reading. Beside every missing piece appeared the same destination. Room 27, North Gallery. Helena raised her eyes. Blackmere has no room 27. Seraphina's fingers moved instinctively toward the keys at her waist. Only for a second, but Helena saw it. Edmund took the book from her. An old storage designation, perhaps. No, I measured that gallery when we restored the west roof. Room 26 ends against the outer wall. Then this is another clerical error. The same error repeated 12 times. Silence tightened around them. Helena looked again at the writing. The ink was fresh, but the descriptions came from her catalogue. Whoever had prepared the entries possessed access to her private desk and enough authority to move valuables without alerting the servants. Then she noticed a faint number in the lower corner of the page. 17. Not a page number, a copying mark used by commercial appraisers to keep loose sheets in order. There should have been 16 earlier sheets. Helena closed the book. "I will surrender my rooms for your search," she told Edmund. "But I will not confess to a theft you have not troubled yourself to investigate." His jaw tightened. "You are confined to the east apartments until I decide otherwise." Seraphina removed a small brass key from the ring. It was darker than the others, recently polished around its teeth. Stamped into its bow was the number 27. Helena stared at it as Seraphina quickly folded her fingers. The room was real, and the missing silver was only the excuse someone needed to reach it. The key, marked 27, disappeared into Seraphina's closed hand. Helena said nothing as 2 footmen escorted her from the hall. Calling attention to the key would only warn Seraphina that her mistake had been noticed. For now, Helena needed her enemy to believe the humiliation had succeeded. Behind her, the orchestra resumed at Edmund's command. The music followed Helena up the great staircase like a final insult. Mrs. Agnes Finch, Helena's personal maid, waited inside the east apartments. At 58, Agnes had served Blackmere since before Edmund's birth and possessed the calm expression of a woman who had survived 3 duchesses, 2 fires, and an outbreak of scarlet fever. "They have stationed a footman outside," Agnes whispered. "Whose man?" "Mr. Crow. Lady Seraphina hired him last month." Helena crossed to her escritoire. A narrow strip of red wax now sealed both doors. Someone had pressed Edmund's signet into it. "They searched this room before sealing it," she said. Agnes frowned. "How can you tell?" "The left drawer is not fully closed, and the wax is covering a scratch that was not there this morning." Helena crouched beside the desk. Years earlier, she had asked a cabinet maker to build a false base beneath the lowest drawer. It contained copies of the household accounts, correspondence concerning Bellhaven orphanage, and the private catalogue from which the forged inventory had been taken. She could not open it while a guard stood outside. Instead, Helena moved to the window and looked toward the northern courtyard. From there, she could see the roofline above the gallery. 26 windows faced the gardens. Yet between the final 2 windows, the stonework was nearly twice as wide as elsewhere, a space large enough for another chamber. Helena had measured the interior gallery 11 years ago, but not the exterior wall. The original plans she had used were produced after a fire destroyed the north wing 40 years earlier. If the builders had enclosed one surviving room rather than demolish it, room 27 might have vanished from every modern record. "Agnes, what do you remember about the north wing fire?" The maid's hands became still. "I was a kitchen girl then." "Was anyone killed?" "His Grace's aunt, Lady Beatrice. At least that was what the family said." "What do you mean?" Agnes glanced toward the door. No body was shown to the servants. The late Duke ordered the damaged rooms sealed. Afterward, anyone who asked questions was dismissed. Helena felt the first shape of the danger forming. Lady Beatrice had been Edmund's father's elder sister. As a woman, she could not inherit the dukedom, but private property settled upon her might have passed through an entirely different line. If documents relating to that property remained inside the hidden room, they could threaten someone who had profited from her presumed death. A quiet scrape sounded behind the bedroom wall. Agnes turned sharply. Helena raised one finger for silence. The sound came again. Wood sliding against wood. Someone was searching the adjoining dressing room. Helena crossed the carpet and opened the door without warning. A young housemaid dropped to her knees beside an overturned linen chest. She could not have been more than 17. Her name was Lucy Bell, one of 3 girls Helena had brought from Bellhaven and trained for household service. "Your Grace," Lucy gasped, "I was ordered to search your clothing." "By whom?" "Lady Seraphina." "For silver?" Lucy's eyes filled with tears. "For a packet of letters. She said they would be sewn into the lining of one of your gowns." That was not the search Edmund had authorized. "Did she describe the letters?" "Old parchment, tied, with black ribbon. Helena remembered seeing such a packet once, shortly after her marriage. It had lain among Edmund's father's papers, marked with the name Beatrice. When Helena later asked to catalogue it, the late Duke claimed it had been burned. Seraphina believed otherwise. A heavy step sounded in the corridor. Helena quickly righted the linen chest. "You found nothing," she told Lucy. "Leave the room, and do not speak to anyone from Bellhaven until I send word. But the winter payment, I will protect it." The promise escaped before Helena knew how she could fulfill it. Yet the fear on Lucy's face reminded her that surrender would punish far more people than herself. When the maid departed, Agnes whispered, "Lady Seraphina controls the household purse now." Not all of it. Helena's marriage settlement granted her £600 of annual pin money. Edmund administered the payments, but any amount unpaid at year's end became a debt against his private income. He could freeze her present allowance. He could not erase what had already accrued. For 3 years, Helena had left part of that money untouched to create an emergency fund for the tenants. The bank draft proving it existed was hidden beneath the escritoire. She needed an ally outside Seraphina's control. "Send for Mr. Elias Mercer," Helena said. "Tell him I require an appraisal of my mother's necklace." Agnes stared at her. "That necklace is the last thing you possess from her, and it is mine under the settlement. You would sell it for Bellhaven? I would sell it to buy time, not surrender. I would—" A knock interrupted them. Edmund entered without waiting for permission. He had removed his formal coat, but his expression remained guarded. "Seraphina tells me you frightened one of the maids." Seraphina ordered that maid to search for letters, not silver. For the first time that night, uncertainty crossed his face. "Which letters?" "Ask your cousin. I am asking you, and I am telling you that the accusation against me does not match the search being conducted." Edmund looked toward the sealed escritoire. For one suspended moment, Helena thought he might break the wax and examine the desk himself. Instead, he moved to the door. "The magistrate arrives tomorrow. If the silver is not recovered, you will answer his questions." Helena watched him leave, without inspecting a single drawer. Then Agnes noticed something on the carpet where he had stood. A fragment of black ribbon clung to the mud on Edmund's boot. Helena picked it up. Its edge had been freshly burned. The ribbon's edge crumbled beneath Helena's thumb. It carried the faint odour of beeswax and smoke, but the mud on Edmund's boot contained something more revealing. Pale grey dust, fine as flour. "Plaster," Agnes whispered. Helena nodded. The floors between the great hall and the east apartments were polished oak. Edmund could only have collected fresh plaster dust by entering a room under repair or by standing near a wall recently opened. He had been close to room 27. Whether he knew it or not remained uncertain. Helena wrapped the ribbon fragment in a clean handkerchief and gave it to Agnes. "Hide this inside your sewing basket. Do not leave it in my rooms." Before dawn, the house awakened under Seraphina's new authority. Bells rang at unfamiliar hours. Servants hurried through corridors carrying sealed boxes, and 3 of Helena's most trusted staff members were reassigned to the distant south wing. At 7, Mr. Elias Mercer arrived from the village. Mercer was a broad-shouldered silversmith of 45, whose father had once supplied Blackmere House. Helena had employed him for years to repair estate heirlooms because he valued honest workmanship more than fashionable names. Seraphina received him in the morning room before allowing him upstairs. When he finally entered Helena's apartments, Mr. Crow followed and remained beside the door. "You requested an appraisal, Your Grace?" Mercer asked formally. Helena placed her mother's pearl and silver necklace on the table. "I require enough money to cover Bellhaven's winter expenses." Mercer examined the necklace through a small lens. The pearls alone would secure £300. "Arrange the sale." Crow shifted near the doorway. Helena watched him through the mirror. News of the necklace would reach Seraphina within minutes. That was intentional. If Seraphina believed Helena was desperate for money, she might grow careless. Mercer turned the clasp over. "This silverwork was made by my father, as was much of the missing Blackmere collection." His hands paused. Helena continued before Crow could object. "Lady Seraphina will require a professional inventory. You should offer your services." Mercer met her eyes and understood. "I would be honoured." He packed the necklace into a plain, wooden case. Beneath its velvet lining lay the routine sales receipt he had brought for Helena to sign. She wrote her name, then added 3 words in the space intended for delivery instructions. Check recent solder. Mercer closed the case without reacting. After he left, Seraphina arrived, wearing Helena's keys over a gown of dark green silk. "You have sold your mother's necklace," she said. "How touching, though some may wonder why a woman accused of theft is so eager to raise money." "I expected you to wonder." Seraphina walked to the sealed escritoire and ran one finger over the wax. "His Grace has authorized me to open this desk." "Then open it." The answer disturbed her. Helena stepped aside as Seraphina selected a key and broke Edmund's seal. The upper drawers contained correspondence, household lists, and paid bills. Seraphina searched each one with increasing impatience. At last, she pulled out Helena's private catalogue. "There," Seraphina said. "The source of the inventory, the source of its errors as well." Seraphina's smile faltered. Helena opened the book to the entry for the baptismal basin. "You copied its weight as 41 ounces. That figure is false." Crow moved closer. "I wrote it deliberately," Helena continued, after an appraiser attempted to replace the original with a lighter copy. "The real basin weighs 43 ounces. "If you already knew that," Seraphina replied, "you could have created the false inventory yourself." "Perhaps, but I would not have copied my own trap." For one instant, genuine anger sharpened Seraphina's face. Then footsteps sounded in the corridor. Edmund entered with Magistrate Harland, a narrow, silver-haired man carrying a leather portfolio. Seraphina immediately handed him the catalogue. "Helena admits the missing inventory was copied from her private records." "That is not what I said," Helena replied. The magistrate compared the 2 books. "Your Grace, who else could access this desk?" "My maid, occasionally the housekeeper, and anyone possessing the household keys." Every eye moved toward Seraphina's waist. Edmund's voice hardened. "My cousin received those keys last night." "One key opened this desk before last night," Helena said. "The key I carried, but copies can be made." Seraphina gave a light laugh. "Surely the Duchess does not expect us to chase imaginary keys and imaginary rooms." "Room 27 is not imaginary." Helena crossed to the window and pointed toward the north gallery. "The exterior wall between those 2 windows measures nearly 12 feet. Inside, the distance between rooms 25 and 26 is less than half that width. A chamber has been enclosed between them." Magistrate Harland approached the glass. "A simple measurement would settle the question." "We will perform it now," Helena said. "No," Edmund answered. The refusal came too quickly. Helena turned toward him. Fresh plaster still clung to the edge of his left boot. "Why not?" "Because the north gallery is unsafe. Seraphina discovered cracked panelling there last week. Workmen have been ordered to reinforce it." "Then you have already opened the wall." Edmund looked briefly toward his cousin. Seraphina answered for him. "Only a narrow section. We found nothing except damaged brick." The magistrate frowned. "Was any report made?" "I saw no reason to trouble His Grace with a servant's inspection." But Edmund had carried plaster into Helena's room. He had visited the site himself, and now he allowed Seraphina to lie about his involvement. Helena understood his motive. Admitting that he had entered the concealed space would force him to explain why he had withheld its existence during the accusation. He was not protecting Seraphina because he believed her innocent. He was protecting his own pride. A servant appeared at the door. "Lady Seraphina, Mr. Mercer requests permission to examine the remaining silver." Seraphina's gaze stayed fixed on Helena. "Permit it," she said, at last. Helena had won a small opening. Mercer would enter the vault legally and examine every piece still present. But as Seraphina turned away, Helena saw her slide the brass key, marked 27 from the ring, and pass it silently to Crow. Crow left before the others. Seraphina now knew Helena could expose the copied inventory, and she had just sent her man to remove whatever remained behind the wall. Helena reached the gallery too late to stop Crow. She had persuaded Magistrate Harland that an accused woman must be permitted to observe the official inspection. Edmund reluctantly agreed, but only after assigning 2 footmen to remain beside her. By then, the north gallery smelled of fresh mortar. The portrait Helena had noticed during the feast, a severe woman wearing black pearls, now hung several inches lower than before. Beneath its frame, a line of white plaster dust marked the carpet. Crow stood nearby with an iron bar in his hand. Reinforcing the damaged panelling, he explained. Helena looked at Seraphina. The brass key marked 27 had returned to her ring. Whatever Crow had removed from the hidden room was no longer visible. At the opposite end of the gallery, Mr. Mercer emerged from the silver vault, carrying the baptismal basin. Magistrate Harland followed with Edmund. Mercer placed the basin on a portable scale. 43 ounces, he announced. The magistrate checked Helena's private catalogue, then compared it with the inventory used to accuse her. The disputed inventory records 41. As I told you, Helena said. Seraphina folded her arms. The Duchess could have replaced the lighter basin with the original after preparing the false record. Not without breaking the vault seal, Mercer replied. He turned the basin upside down and pointed to a narrow line beneath its base. This repair was completed 5 years ago. I used a particular solder containing a trace of copper. The join has not been disturbed since. Edmund studied the basin. So Helena's catalogue is accurate. Her private catalogue is accurate, Harland corrected. The later inventory is not. For the first time, the accusation against Helena weakened before an independent witness. Seraphina's expression remained composed, but her thumb rubbed rapidly across the largest key on the ring. A cry erupted from the servants' staircase. Lucy Bell stumbled into the gallery, coughing through a cloud of smoke. "Fire!" she gasped. "In the records room." Helena ran before either footman could stop her. The records room stood directly below the north gallery. Smoke poured beneath its door, black and oily. A terrified kitchen boy held an empty water bucket, while servants shouted over one another. "Do not open it," Helena ordered. Crow pushed through the crowd. "Stand aside. If you open that door fully, the draft will feed the flames." He reached for the handle anyway. Helena struck his hand away. "The linen press," she told Lucy. "Bring every wool blanket. Soak them in the laundry trough." She sent 2 footmen to close the corridor windows, then ordered the servants to form a line from the courtyard pump. When the wet blankets arrived, Helena wrapped one around her shoulders and opened the door only wide enough to crawl beneath the smoke. Heat scorched her face. A wastebasket burned beside the document shelves. Flames had reached the lower cabinet, but the fire had not yet crossed the stone floor. Helena dragged the basket away, smothered it with the blanket, and poured water across the cabinet doors. Within minutes, the worst of the danger had passed. When she emerged, coughing and streaked with soot, the servants stared at her with the same trust they had shown before Edmund took her keys. Seraphina arrived last. "How fortunate," she said, "that the Duchess knew exactly where the fire began." Helena ignored the insinuation and returned to the room. The wastebasket contained charred scraps of black ribbon. Someone had attempted to destroy the Beatrice letters. Near the cabinet lay a plain brass button bearing the crest of Seraphina's family. Crow wore an identical row on his coat. Helena covered it with her shoe before he could see. Then she noticed that Lucy had followed her inside. The girl bent as if gathering wet paper and slipped the button into her apron pocket. Her movement was quick, but Seraphina saw it. "What did you take?" she demanded. "Nothing, my lady. Turn out your pockets." Helena stepped between them. This girl helped save the estate records. She stole something from the floor. "Then make your accusation before the magistrate." Seraphina's gaze hardened. "You are in no position to protect thieves. I will protect any servant you attempt to frighten into silence." It was Helena's first boundary spoken before the household. The servants heard it. So did Edmund. Seraphina smiled without warmth. "Very well. Let the magistrate search her." Lucy went pale. Helena knew that if the button were found, Seraphina would claim Helena had planted it. Its value lay not in possession alone, but in establishing where it had been discovered and who had seen it there. "Mr. Mercer," Helena said, "did you observe Lucy pick up an object beside the burned cabinet?" The silversmith understood immediately. "I did." "So did I," Magistrate Harland added from the doorway. Now the chain of witnesses could not be erased. Lucy removed the button and placed it on a clean sheet of paper. Harland wrapped and sealed it inside an envelope, noting the time, room, and names of those present. Crow's face drained of colour. Seraphina recovered first. "One of my servants may have lost it during yesterday's inspection. Crow told us the North Gallery was the only area inspected," Helena said. "Why would one of your buttons be inside a locked records room below it?" Edmund looked at Crow. "Answer her," Crow swallowed. Lady Seraphina sent me to search for proof of the duchess's transactions. That room contains estate deeds, Helena replied. Not my personal accounts. A burned ledger lay beneath the cabinet. Helena lifted it carefully. Only part of its label survived. Beatrice Vale, Private Trust. Seraphina's maiden name was Vale. The missing letters were not merely connected to Edmund's aunt. They concerned property tied to Seraphina's own family. Helena held the damaged ledger toward her husband. "Break the wall," she said. "Open room 27 in front of the magistrate, and we will learn what Seraphina tried to burn." Edmund stared at the ledger, the sealed button, and the plaster on Crow's sleeves. Every piece invited him to investigate. Then Seraphina whispered, "If you open that room, the truth about your father will become public." Edmund's face changed. He turned to the magistrate. "The inspection is over." "The inspection is not over," Magistrate Harland said. Edmund's face hardened. "You are a guest in my house. I am also the magistrate summoned to investigate a theft. Your wife has produced evidence of falsified records, unlawful searches, and attempted destruction of estate documents. My father's private affairs have no bearing on the missing silver." Helena looked at the burned ledger in her hands. "They have everything to do with it. The Blackmere reliquary bears a second mark beneath the family crest. I found it years ago, but could never identify it. If the silver belonged to Lady Beatrice's trust, it may never have been yours to sell, pledge, or transfer." Seraphina's composure finally cracked. "It belonged to my family." The admission silenced the corridor. Helena turned toward her. "Then why accuse me of stealing it?" Seraphina recovered quickly. "Because the trust passed lawfully to the Blackmere estate after Lady Beatrice's death. Where is the deed proving that?" "It was destroyed in the fire." "Then what are you searching for behind the wall?" Edmund seized the burned ledger from Helena. "That is enough." "No," she said. "It became enough when you gave my keys to the woman burning your records." A muscle tightened in his jaw. Helena knew that expression. It had appeared whenever his father compared him unfavorably with the older brother who had died before inheriting the title. Edmund feared public disgrace more than financial loss, and Seraphina had placed that fear exactly where she needed it. Magistrate Harland extended his hand. "I will take custody of the ledger." Edmund did not surrender it. Instead, he carried it to the fireplace in the records room. Helena stepped forward. "Do not." He paused with the ledger above the flames. It was the moment he could still choose truth. He could give the book to Harland, open room 27, and allow the evidence to speak regardless of what it revealed about his father. Seraphina moved beside him. "If these papers become public, every creditor in England will question the Blackmere title." Helena held Edmund's gaze. "Your title cannot be protected by destroying what belongs to someone else." His fingers opened. The ledger fell into the fire. Helena lunged, but Crow caught her arms. Flames curled through the damp leather and consumed the remaining name. Magistrate Harland's face went cold. "You have destroyed potential evidence before a witness of the Crown. I destroyed a damaged family record in my own house. You may discover that the law recognizes a difference." Edmund turned away from him. "Remove my wife to the East Apartments." Crow tightened his grip. "Take your hands off me," Helena said. He did not. Edmund looked at Helena's soot-streaked gown, then at the servants watching from the corridor. Shame flickered across his face, but he directed it toward her rather than himself. "You have defied my authority, interfered with the investigation, and encouraged servants to conceal evidence. I saved your records and exposed the false inventory. You created disorder at every stage." Seraphina produced a folded document from her sleeve. "The magistrate cannot proceed while the household remains divided. His Grace should appoint one person to oversee every room, account, servant, and estate record until the matter is settled." Harland read the document over her shoulder. "This grants Lady Seraphina authority to remove property, dismiss witnesses from service, and issue payments in the Duke's name." "Temporary authority," Seraphina said. "It also permits her to destroy materials deemed damaged or without value." Helena understood. With one signature, Edmund would give Seraphina legal-looking permission to empty room 27, remove the silver, dismiss Lucy, and burn whatever documents remained. The scheme no longer depended upon secret access. Edmund would make it possible openly. "Do not sign it," Helena said. He took the pen. "Edmund," She lied about entering the wall. She protected my family from a scandal you seem determined to expose. She set a fire beneath your gallery. You have no proof. The button could have been planted. He had not merely ignored the evidence. He had chosen the explanation that preserved his pride and condemned his wife. Edmund signed. Seraphina dusted the document with sand. Triumph appeared in her eyes before she lowered them modestly. Magistrate Harland closed his portfolio. I will record that I advised against this transfer. You may record whatever you please, Edmund replied. Harland turned to Helena. I cannot prevent his grace from governing his household, but I can retain the sealed button and my notes. That small protection mattered. Seraphina could destroy objects inside Blackmere, but she could not erase evidence already outside her control. Crow escorted Helena upstairs. Before the east apartment door closed, Lucy hurried from the servants' passage. Your Grace, Mr. Mercer found something, she whispered. Crow pulled her back. Seraphina appeared at the end of the corridor. Miss Bell is dismissed, she announced. She will leave Blackmere within the hour. Helena stepped between Lucy and Crow. The girl came from Bellhaven under a 5-year service agreement. You cannot cast her onto the road without wages. Seraphina raised Edmund's signed authorization. I can now. Lucy began to cry. Helena removed the pearl earring that matched her mother's necklace and pressed it into the girl's palm. Go to Mr. Mercer. He will give you shelter. Tell him to keep whatever he found away from this estate. Crow dragged Lucy toward the stairs. Helena did not appeal to Edmund. That part of her hope had finally gone quiet. Her goal was no longer to persuade her husband to reopen the investigation. It was to protect the witnesses, secure Bellhaven's money, and uncover the truth beyond his control. Agnes waited until the guards locked the apartment door. Then she drew a folded receipt from her sleeve. Mr. Mercer slipped this into Lucy's apron before they caught her. The receipt recorded his inspection of the silver vault. 11 pieces showed old repairs. The 12th, the reliquary, had been cut open and soldered shut within the past 7 days. Inside its hollow base, Mercer had heard something move. Before Helena could speak, carriage wheels thundered across the courtyard. She went to the window. 3 black coaches had entered beneath the crest of Ashdown and Pike, one of London's most ruthless private creditors. Armed officers climbed down, carrying writs and chains. The lead man unfolded a seizure order bearing Edmund's signature. Seraphina had not merely used the hidden silver to accuse Helena. She had used it to secure a debt against Blackmere. The fire spread through the north gallery, while strangers carried Blackmere's paintings into the courtyard. Edmund shouted orders, but no one obeyed him. The authority he had given Seraphina now stood between him and his own house. For the first time, Helena saw him understand the cost of choosing pride over truth. She used my signature, he said. No, Helena answered. She used the power you freely gave her. He looked at her as though he expected help. Helena gave him none. Instead, she organized the servants into 2 lines and sent wet blankets toward the north wing. Bellhaven's children, Lucy, and the innocent household staff mattered more than saving Edmund from humiliation. Mercer emerged from the silver vault, carrying the reliquary. I found this behind a loose stone, he said. Someone opened it recently and sealed it again. Crow lunged toward him. The reliquary struck the floor and split apart. A roll of parchment slipped from its hollow base. Seraphina kicked it beneath a cabinet and overturned an oil lamp. Flames raced across the carpet. Helena smothered the fire with her cloak. Crow seized the parchment and ran. He almost reached the stable yard before Lucy stepped into his path and threw a bucket beneath his feet. Crow fell, and the parchment flew from his coat. Lucy caught it. When Crow grabbed the girl's ankle, Helena lifted a stable fork and placed its points against his throat. Release her. This time, no one questioned Helena's authority. Crow obeyed. The magistrate took the parchment before Edmund, Mercer, Lucy, and the gathered servants. Written across its outer fold were the words, "To be opened if the Blackmere silver is ever used against Bellhaven." Inside, Lady Beatrice warned that the silver in Bellhaven had been protected from the Blackmere dukes after her brother tried to steal them. The proof was hidden inside room 27. A final sentence carried the greatest danger. If the room were opened, the evidence must be presented publicly before Seraphina could destroy it. Above them, part of the north gallery collapsed. Edmund stared at the smoke. My father sealed that room, and you nearly allowed Seraphina to erase what he did. Helena said. They had until noon the following day to recover the truth. Helena reached the north gallery as flames broke through the panelling. The fire had begun behind the wall. Seraphina stood at the far staircase, with no soot on her gown and no surprise on her face. Crow remained under Magistrate Harlan's guard in the courtyard, which meant she had prepared another accomplice or another means of destruction before the seizure officers arrived. Form 2 lines from the cistern, Helena ordered, one for full buckets, one for empty. The servants obeyed her, not Seraphina. Edmund tore down the burning portrait of Lady Beatrice. Behind it, a narrow iron door glowed through the smoke. Its keyhole bore the number 27. "Give me the key," Helena told Seraphina. "I do not have it. I saw it on your ring." Seraphina raised both hands. The brass key was gone. Edmund seized the ring and searched it himself. Nothing. A beam cracked above them. "Break the lock," Helena said. The creditor's men refused to risk their tools inside a burning wing. Edmund sent for an axe, but Helena knew the iron door would outlast the gallery. Then she remembered the exterior measurements. The hidden room shared its northern wall with the roof above the old chapel passage. If they entered from the loft, they might avoid the iron door entirely. This way, Helena led Mercer, Lucy, and Harland down the servants' stairs. Edmund followed. At the chapel loft, the heat was weaker. Helena counted the support posts, then measured the distance with a length of bell rope. Her father had taught her that buildings, like account books, revealed concealed space through imbalance. She stopped beside a plastered recess. "Here." Mercer struck it with the back of his hammer. The sound came hollow. They broke through. Cold, stale air rushed from the darkness beyond. Room 27 had no windows. Shelves lined its walls, filled with deed boxes, ledgers, and bundles tied in black ribbon. The missing Blackmere silver stood on a central table beside engraving tools, wax moulds, and sheets bearing unfinished copies of Edmund's signature. Seraphina had turned Lady Beatrice's sealed chamber into a forgery room. Harland entered first and began recording each object. "Nothing leaves without a witness," Helena said. "Mr. Mercer, remain beside the silver. Lucy, stand at the opening and name every person who enters." Edmund stared at the forged signatures. "How long has she been doing this?" "At least 3 months," Helena answered. "That is when the loan was issued." He lifted one practice sheet. His own name covered it dozens of times. "She wrote letters for my mother. She brought documents to my study. She asked me to sign invitations and estate orders while I was occupied, and you allowed her to remain beside your desk." His shame showed plainly now. "I trusted her. You chose to trust her after she lied about me." He had no answer. Helena searched the shelves by date and subject, rather than opening boxes at random. Her eye settled on a cedar case, labelled Bellhaven, the same incorrect spelling used in the loan agreement. Inside lay the original executed trust deed bearing her father's blue seal. Beside it rested Lady Beatrice's testimony. Harland read the first page aloud. 40 years earlier, Beatrice had discovered that her brother, the late Duke of Blackmere, was diverting income from her private trust. The ceremonial silver and Bellhaven lands had been placed beyond his control as security for repayment. When she threatened to expose him, a fire was set in her rooms. Beatrice survived. With the help of a loyal housekeeper, she escaped Blackmere and lived under another name abroad. Before leaving, she sealed the documents in the reliquary and hidden room, intending them to protect the trust if her brother ever attempted to use its property again. "She was not killed in the fire," Edmund said. "No," Helena replied. "Your father declared her dead so no one would search for her." Another paper recorded annual payments sent to a woman in Antwerp for 22 years. Helena recognized every amount. She had found unexplained withdrawals in the estate accounts after her marriage and quietly reduced household expenses to cover them. Edmund had praised his father for leaving the estate stable, never knowing Helena had spent 11 years correcting the damage. "You paid these obligations," he said. "I prevented their concealment from destroying your tenants, and I accused you of stealing from me. You did more than accuse me. You gave the person exploiting the fraud authority to finish it." His face tightened as though she had struck him. "I will revoke Seraphina's authority. You may do so for your own protection. It does not restore mine. Helena, if we cooperate, it will be on 3 conditions. The deed goes directly into Magistrate Harlan's custody. Bellhaven's income is separated from every Blackmere account, and Lucy travels with us as a protected witness. Edmund looked at the young maid, whom his signed order had nearly cast into the road. Agreed. Your agreement is not a favour. No, he said quietly, it is not. Harland wrapped the trust deed, Beatrice's testimony, and the signature sheets in oilcloth. He sealed the bundle with his official stamp and gave it to Lucy, whose dismissal placed her outside Seraphina's household authority. Keep it beneath your coat, he instructed. Do not surrender it, except to me before the chancery clerk. The ceiling groaned. They escaped through the loft seconds before part of the gallery collapsed into room 27. Fire consumed the remaining shelves, but the decisive documents were safe. By evening, Helena had moved to Mercer's house in Bellhaven village. It was modest, crowded with silver tools, and beyond Edmund's command. Agnes joined her, while Lucy rested upstairs with the sealed evidence. For the first time since her marriage, Helena possessed a base of action her husband could neither enter nor close. A carriage would take them to London at midnight. At 11, Mercer went upstairs to wake Lucy. Her bed was empty. The window stood open. On the pillow lay Magistrate Harland's broken seal. The deed, the testimony, and Lucy were gone. Outside, fresh carriage tracks led toward the road Seraphina had taken an hour earlier. By noon, every chair in the public hearing room was occupied. The 12 pieces of Blackmere silver stood on a long table. Seraphina waited beside them, still wearing Helena's household keys. She attacked first. Helena stole the collection, invented room 27, and persuaded a servant to support her lie. Lucy remained hidden in the adjoining chamber under guard. Seraphina still believed the girl could never testify against her. Helena placed her private catalogue on the table. When did you first see this book? After Edmund gave me the keys. Never before? Never. Mercer weighed the baptismal basin. 43 ounces. Helena opened her catalogue. It deliberately recorded 41. The list Seraphina used to accuse me repeats my false number. She could only have copied it from this book. Seraphina's face tightened. You gave it to me. Then why did you swear you had never seen it? A murmur passed through the room. Helena moved to the second piece of evidence. Which object contained Lady Beatrice's warning? Seraphina's eyes went immediately to the reliquary. That one. Helena turned its broken base toward the witnesses. Seraphina left before this object broke open. No one publicly identified where the warning was hidden. Seraphina stepped backward. You told me. I have not spoken to you since the night you took my keys. The room became completely silent. Helena then pointed to the brass key stamped with the number 27. You said the room did not exist. Why did you possess its key? I found it after the fire. Mercer and the magistrate both saw you pass it to Crow before the fire began. Seraphina looked toward Edmund. Once, he would have protected her to avoid disgrace. This time, he stepped away. I saw the plaster on Crow's clothes, Edmund said. I knew Helena's questions were justified, and I silenced her anyway. His confession destroyed Seraphina's final defense. She tried to leave, but the doors opened. Lucy entered with bruises around her wrists. Lady Seraphina forced me into her carriage and stole the real deed. The recovered document was placed before Helena. Its blue seal carried the private marks of both her father and Lady Beatrice. Bellhaven had never belonged to Edmund. It belonged to Helena's protected trust. Seraphina's plan was suddenly simple enough for everyone to understand. She had used the silver to obtain money, blamed Helena for its disappearance, and intended to take Bellhaven after Helena lost her reputation. You believed a merchant's daughter would be easy to disgrace, Helena said. Seraphina's voice broke. You were never worthy of those keys. Helena looked at the woman who had taken her place, her authority, and nearly her freedom. No, you simply mistook my patience for weakness. The keys were removed from Seraphina's waist before she was taken away. The 12 pieces of Blackmere silver were placed in a row before the crowded room. Helena stood on one side of the table. Seraphina stood on the other, still wearing the household keys taken from Helena. My first question is simple, Helena said. When did you first see my private catalogue? After His Grace gave me the keys. Never before that night? Never. Helena asked Mercer to weigh the baptismal basin. 43 ounces, he announced. She opened her catalogue. My book deliberately records 41 ounces. I inserted the false number years ago to catch anyone copying my work. The inventory used to accuse Helena also recorded 41. The basin never left the sealed vault, Helena said. Whoever prepared the accusation copied my private catalogue without understanding the error. Seraphina's confidence weakened. You may have prepared both documents yourself. Then we come to my second question. Why did you carry a key marked 27 before anyone admitted that room 27 existed? I did not. Helena looked toward Edmund. He stepped forward. I saw the key on her ring. Mercer confirmed that Seraphina had passed it to Crow after Helena measured the gallery. Magistrate Harland produced the brass button recovered from the burned records room and identified it as belonging to Crow's coat. Seraphina's story began to fracture. Helena touched the final silver object. My third question. Which piece contained Lady Beatrice's warning? Seraphina looked along the row. The baptismal basin. Mercer turned the reliquary over, revealing its broken base. Gasps spread through the room. The warning came from here, Helena said. You left before it broke open. If you knew nothing about room 27, you could not have known that any object contained a letter. I answered incorrectly. Yes, but your inventory described the reliquary as recently opened to remove private papers. That description was written before you accused me. Seraphina's face went pale. She had trapped herself. If she denied knowing about the letter, she could not explain the inventory. If she admitted knowing, she proved that she had opened the reliquary and entered the hidden room before Helena was accused. The doors opened. Lucy entered with Magistrate Harland. Bruises circled her wrists, but she walked directly toward Helena. Lady Seraphina forced me into her carriage, Lucy said. She took the sealed bundle and replaced it with burned papers. A blue sealed document fell beneath the seat. Lady Harland placed the recovered deed on the table. It was found inside the carriage used to confine Lucy. Seraphina backed away. You cannot trust a servant. Edmund's voice stopped her. I trusted you instead of my wife. That choice nearly destroyed every person who depended upon her. I will not make it again. The deed was opened. It confirmed in plain language that Bellhaven belonged to Helena's protected marriage settlement. Edmund had never possessed the right to pledge or surrender it. The Blackmere silver had also been placed beyond the Duke's control until an old debt to Lady Beatrice was repaid. Seraphina had discovered the truth inside room 27. She knew she could never inherit Bellhaven, so she planned to have it taken for debt and secretly purchase it afterward. Helena had to be disgraced because she was the only person who knew the estate accounts and silver collection well enough to expose the plan. The men Seraphina had paid were arrested. Crow's button, the fires, Lucy's bruises, the copied inventory, and the money taken in Seraphina's name completed the case against her. The household keys shook at her waist. You were never worthy of them, Helena said. Seraphina tore the ring free and threw it across the table. It stopped before Edmund. He picked it up, but instead of returning it to Helena, as though her authority was still his to grant, he lowered himself onto one knee before her. The crowded room fell silent. Edmund remained on one knee before Helena. The same man who had taken her keys before 100 guests now held them in both hands without daring to place them in hers. I accused you because believing Seraphina protected my pride, he said. I humiliated you before our household. I confined you, ignored your evidence, burned the truth, and gave another woman the authority you had earned through 11 years of loyalty. His voice broke, but he did not look away. You saved my tenants, my servants, my name, and children who were never your responsibility. I repaid you by treating your honor as something I could remove with a ring of keys. Helena's eyes filled with tears. This was not the commanding duke asking his wife to return to her place. It was Edmund naming precisely how he had broken their marriage. I do not deserve forgiveness today, he continued. I may never deserve it, but I will spend every day repairing what I can, even if the life you choose no longer includes me. He placed the keys on the floor between them. They are not mine to return. Blackmere survived because of you. Your authority belongs to you alone. Helena looked around the room. Lucy stood safely beside Agnes. Mercer held the authenticated deed. Bellhaven had been restored, and Seraphina's men were being led away. Only after Helena's security had been returned did Edmund ask for nothing. She stepped toward him. "I loved you," she said. "That is why your betrayal wounded me more deeply than Seraphina ever could." "I know. No, you are only beginning to know." He bowed his head. Helena touched his face and raised it again. "I cannot become your wife again today, simply because you finally became honest. I will not ask it. Let me, but I will not pretend that everything between us died." Hope crossed his face, fragile and disbelieving. Helena knelt before him, so they faced each other as equals. "You will repair Bellhaven. You will rehire every servant dismissed under Seraphina's authority. You will correct my name before every guest who heard you accuse me." "I will. You will never again call obedience loyalty. Never. And if you wish to court me, you will do so from the beginning, with no title, no command, and no certainty that I will choose you." Edmund's tears finally fell. "I would be grateful for the chance." Helena drew him into her arms. The room remained silent as Edmund held his wife, not with the force of possession, but with the trembling care of a man who understood that she could still walk away. He pressed his forehead against hers. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I know." She did not yet say that she forgave him, but before she stepped away, she kissed his cheek. It was not absolution. It was the first door she had chosen not to close. During the following 6 months, Edmund fulfilled every condition without asking when Helena would return. He sold his London residence to repair Bellhaven and repay Helena's withheld allowance. He resigned his public position after admitting that he had destroyed evidence. Every servant dismissed by Seraphina received wages, an apology, and the choice to return. Before the same guests who witnessed Helena's humiliation, Edmund publicly declared that his wife had been innocent and that his own pride had enabled the crime. Helena lived separately at Bellhaven. Edmund visited only when invited. He arrived without an entourage, listened when Helena spoke, and left when she asked. Slowly, their conversations ceased to concern, only restitution. They remembered the affection that had existed before fear and pride poisoned it. One spring evening, Edmund arrived carrying no papers and making no report. Helena met him beneath the newly planted trees outside Bellhaven. "I have finished rebuilding the North Gallery," he said, "but I will not ask you to live there." "Good." He smiled faintly. "I thought you might say that." Helena removed a letter from her pocket. It was the first one he had written after their separation, worn soft from being read many times. "You told me that if I returned, it must be because I chose you freely." "Yes. And if I never returned, you would still continue repairing what you broke." "Yes." She stepped closer. "That is why I can choose you now." Edmund stopped breathing. "I am not returning to the marriage we had," Helena said. "That marriage ended when you took my keys." "I understand. I will return only if we build another one in which my voice does not depend upon your permission." He held out his hand but waited. Helena placed hers inside it. "I would spend the rest of my life building that marriage," he said. This time, when he kissed her, Helena answered without fear or obligation. She had not been won back by his title, his apology, or his suffering. She returned because his actions had finally made love possible again. Together, they converted the restored North Gallery into a school where girls learned bookkeeping, property management, and practical trades. The concealed chamber was rebuilt rather than erased. A brass plaque appeared beside its door. Room 27, Accounts and Property for Young Women. On the anniversary of the night Edmund had stripped away Helena's authority, he brought the restored silver keyring to the school. He did not fasten it at her waist. He placed it on the table and stepped back. Helena selected one key and opened the door herself. Then she gave a copy to every girl waiting inside. Edmund stood beside her, not ahead of her, not in place of her, and when Helena reached for his hand, the choice belonged entirely to her.